Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.
Whenever you're ready, Matt.
Welcome to the Merrimack Conservation Commission, Monday, June 22nd. We're gonna kick right off with call to order. We're gonna hold off on public comment on agenda items until the agenda items come up. We have no hearings or appointments. The first piece of business we're going to take up is statutory advisory business, PMG Petroleum Marketing Group, Inc. If you folks could join.
Hey, Matt, we're all going to have to introduce ourselves and state who we are and why we're here.
Oh. I guess I'll start then. My name is Matt Caron, the chair of the Merrimack Conservation Commission. Steve?
Yeah, I'm Steve Perkins. I'm participating remotely due to social distancing rules. I am alone in this room. It's a office space where I work.
Hi, I'm Gina Rosati, and I'm participating electronically from home. Attendance in person is not reasonably practical due to COVID-19. I am alone in the room I am in, and I can hear the proceedings.
Hi, I'm Mike Boisvert. I'm attending this meeting electronically, and I'm alone in this room right now, and that's it.
I'm Mike Swisher, attending remotely due to COVID-19. I'm all by myself in this room, and I can hear everyone just fine.
Hi, I'm Tim Tenhave. I am alone in this room while there are others in the house. I am attending electronically due to COVID-19 concerns, and I can hear you all just fine.
I'm Eric Starr, attending from home remotely due to the pandemic. I'm alone in my room. Yeah, I think that's it.
I'm Gage Perry. I'm attending remotely due to COVID-19 restrictions. I'm alone in my room, but there are other members of the household present.
I'm Cindy Glenn, participating electronically from home because attendance in person was not reasonably practical due to COVID-19. I'm alone in this room, and I can hear everyone just fine.
I think that covers all of the members of the commission. I am also at home and alone in this room, but I can hear everybody. All right, I guess now we will jump into statutory advisory business. Petroleum Marketing Group, welcome aboard.
Hello.
Floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Jesse Coakley. I'm with Mazer Consulting, the engineer of record for the project. I just want to thank all the board members for their time tonight. I know it's been a hectic time, so I appreciate everyone taking time out of their schedule to be on this call. And I hope everyone is staying safe. On behalf of our client, Petroleum Marketing Group, we'll refer to them as PMG throughout the proceedings here. we have a site located at 1 Continental Boulevard, which is the southwest corner of the intersection between Camp Sargent Road and Continental Boulevard. It's an existing Gulf service station with a separate overhead canopy that has 4 multi-product dispensers, MPDs for short. Our client's proposing to raise and redevelop the site with a new convenience store that has a drive-through and then a separate canopy with 6 multi-product dispensers. We're looking to improve the overall appearance of the site with a new building, new canopy, landscaping, a circulation pattern that we feel is improved at the site, as well as dark sky compliant LED lighting and stormwater mitigation. Right now, the proposed redevelopment results in a 0.05 acre increase of impervious surface. We went to the planning board in early March, received some technical comments from the board and the consultants from the town, one of which was to come to the Conservation Commission for a recommendation prior to going back to the planning board. However, we all know in mid-March things changed pretty drastically for everyone. So this meeting was rescheduled, and by the time we actually got scheduled here, we were actually able to go back to the planning board first. I believe some of you are aware we were at the planning board last week. We did receive conditional final approval, one of which the conditions is to come back or to come to you all the first time for this recommendation. So I believe the reason for the referral is we are located in the Aquifer Conservation District, but we do have an email from David Frederickson at the town that we are not closer than 1,000 feet to the nearest Merrimack Village District's closest well, and we are also located outside the central wellhead protection area. We understand the obligations to work with New Hampshire DES and comply with their regulations for stormwater and also gasoline fueling stations. We feel that our design reflects that, but we are in the process of working with them to, ensure that compliance. The other conditions of approval were to comply with the engineering consultants letters, and as I mentioned, to come to this board for a recommendation. So that is an overview. If you need me to, I can share my screen with kind of an aerial exhibit of the proposed redevelopment, or if you have any general questions, we certainly welcome those at this time. Thank you.
Now we welcome you to share your screen.
All right. Hopefully I don't mess this up. So before you is an existing aerial image of, using Google Maps. The site is kind of highlighted here while I zoom in. On the right-hand side, if you can see my mouse, is Camp Sargent Boulevard, and to the top of the site is Continental Boulevard. There is a bank behind our site, and I believe a pizzeria to the west. You can see here, I'll zoom in a little bit more, the existing site really has a 1-story building on the western side, parking kind of scattered throughout. There are some service bays, and then there is the overhead canopy with the pumping fueling positions underneath. You'll notice there are 3 driveways, 2 on Camp Sargent and 1 on Continental Boulevard. What I'm going to show you now is pretty much the same Google Earth aerial with an overlay of our site, kind of colorized to show the proposed improvements. So you can see it zoomed in a little bit more here. Same orientation, Camp Sargent Road on the right-hand side. North is still up, Continental Boulevard here. We are essentially keeping the same driveway on Continental Boulevard, but we are reducing the driveways from 2 down to 1 on Camp Sargent Road. It will make for a much better flow through the site. You can see we've consolidated the parking to in front of the proposed convenience store. We do have a drive-through that goes around back with a bypass lane. You can see some representative landscaping that is also shown, trees in compliance with the planning board regulations, as well as some screening around the front as well. Again, overall, this results in an increase of 0.05 acres of impervious surface. We did get site plan final approval conditional upon a few technical review comments that we just have to resolve with the engineers, but also with a recommendation from the Conservation Commission. So that is why we are here tonight. If you have any other questions, specifics, I'm happy to go through them. And if you want me to stop sharing my screen, I can, or if you want me to leave it up, I can.
I'd like you to leave it up if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is Tim, so that way our minutes taker knows who's speaking. Can you speak to how you're handling stormwater, and also can you speak to how you would handle a fuel spill or other spill that could happen on the property?
Certainly. So stormwater in general, if you can see my mouse, kind of the site is graded existing in such a way that it kind of stormwater would flow towards the northeast corner at the intersection here, and then there's an existing stormwater network of manholes and pipes in Camp Sargent Road and Continental Boulevard that continue towards the east here. So our intention is we have proposed to grade the site in a certain way that, one, the fueling positions will be covered, which will help any contaminated runoff. The edge of the fueling positions, which are a separate concrete mat, will be grooved in accordance with DES regulations for additional spills, and everything else is graded away from that location. So they're essentially like a localized high point in that no stormwater that doesn't immediately fall in this area would traverse over the concrete pad. So we do have a series of inlets around the canopy to capture the runoff as it falls elsewhere on the site. And then it would be piped to an underground detention system that also has a pre-treatment for water quality beforehand. So we would be looking to meet all of the relevant requirements from the state before connecting to the existing system, similar to the way the water flows today. It would certainly be an improvement over what's there, as there isn't much of anything in the way of water quality, stormwater treatment, I should say.
When you talk treatment, does that include some sort of an oil and water separator?
So the pre-treatment is a form of filter system. So it would be designed to capture those things.
And then it has a regular maintenance plan that goes with it?
Yes. I don't recall which manufacturer we are speccing on this job, but each one of those do come with their own set of guidelines that would be incorporated into an operation and maintenance manual that I believe your town does require to be filed as well with the approved plan. So that would be kept on site, and the operator would be aware of its function and the timing of frequency of inspections and cleanings and replacements and things of that nature as well. That would all be included in the operation and maintenance manual, yes.
So this is Gage Perry.
I think, was Tim still speaking, or?
No, he's muted right now.
Okay.
So he's done. The snow removal, what's the plan for snow removal?
So you can see on the site, there's limited areas to be able to store some snow on the site. I believe at the planning board meeting, it was attested that any additional snow beyond that would have to be arranged to be picked up and taken off site somewhere.
So there's not any real snow removal or snow storage on site at all?
There is. We do have some areas designated on the site plan. They're, like I said, not very big, but kind of in and around the areas in the front left here, adjacent to the building here. There is some areas along the back here as well, between us and the neighbor. With the aerial, this is, approximate to scale, so there are some discrepancies with how close the property is. This is an approximation, but there is some area to do some of the lesser snowfall events on the site itself. But anything above that would have to be coordinated and taken off site, and that agreement with that entity will be in place and can be provided if needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The structure on what looks to be the bottom left for me, where your mouse is, that is dumpsters of some sort, potentially?
Yes, so that would be the trash enclosure. You can see a little bit of a lighter green. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit. But we are proposing to do some screening around that, but it would be a masonry trash enclosure with the dumpsters inside with gates as well.
Okay. Where does stormwater flow from that pad or enclosure?
So I believe there is an inlet along this side of the drive aisle, which represents a low point. So that would be taken into there. It then is connected, and I believe runs to the east in front of the canopy in a pipe underground, and then it would go through that same manufactured treatment device for pre-treatment before it goes into the system, and then I think it connects to a manhole right here in Camp Sargent.
Do you intend to have any storage outside of the building for like oil or other things that could be considered hazardous?
I don't believe so. I believe people are on from PMG themselves, but no, that is not the intention here. Everything would, as far as fuel storage, would be in the tanks kind of up here underground, nothing else.
Yeah, I was thinking more like antifreeze containers that people can grab and go and buy, and quarts of oil and stuff like that.
They wouldn't be outside. I think everything of that nature would be contained inside the store.
Again, you said this is just a single convenience store. This is not a quick serve facility or anything like that. It's a straight convenience store.
Convenience store. It does have, you can see it goes around the back. It does have a drive-through, but that would be for coffee or other convenience-related items, not a fast food type of establishment.
As far as plantings go, this is Matt speaking. Do you have a planting schedule? What types of species you're looking to plant?
We do have that on our site plans. I'm sorry I can't share it with you, but we are looking at about 7 shade trees, specifically honey locusts. We're looking at some deciduous shrubs, the little Princess Spirea. We are proposing some evergreen shrubs. Excuse my Latin attempt here, but it's the densiformis yew, like a yew shrub, and then a leatherleaf viburnum. And then we're also proposing a mix of some ornamental grasses and some ground covers, like a Japanese garden juniper or a dwarf fountain grass. If there are any that you have a preference for or something like that, we can certainly take that into consideration as well. So you can see kind of where the 7 shade trees are proposed, and those were in accordance with the site plan regulations in terms of tree location with parking spaces and kind of street trees, etc., and also to provide some screening for the building, from the neighbors, etc.
Typically, our concern with plantings is that you're using mostly native species. We never want to invite the next invasive bloom from a single gas station in town.
Yes. They are the plan was designed by our in-house landscape architect, who actually grew up and born in Vermont. So that is something that was kind of his calling. So those species were selected by him for this use, but also with the region in mind.
Okay. Once we have a minute to look that over and just make sure that they're all, native, then we can add that to the recommendation.
Okay.
So one of our hot buttons is calling out straw versus hay. Can I assume that, because it's difficult to read the plans electronically, can I assume that that hay doesn't exist in any of your landscaping plans, or protections from stormwater and whatever else during construction, and straw is instead mandated?
I would have to double check. I feel like some of our standards do call out hay, but we can certainly make that change. So I will do that and comb through our notes and make sure we swap that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're used to seeing the boilerplate for hay. That's why I bring it up.
It's a good point.
Are there any other comments from the commission?
The only thing that I'm thinking of is to make sure, do we need low phosphorus fertilizer? Do we want to specify that?
I would think we do. That's our standard.
Okay.
So
I can make sure that's included in our notes as well.
You get along with the the Green Snow Pro certification for any de-icing compounds.
You want low phosphorus or no phosphorus? Slow release?
phosphate. In this case, we're not so close to a water body or a stream or a brook.
Okay, so low.
Yeah.
And the Green Snow Pro?
Our standards, yes.
By the way, are you folks familiar with the Green Snow Pro program?
We have been, as we've started to make our way up into, New England and the New Hampshire area, came up on another project. So we are implementing, or we will look to implement it as well here.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Neither do I.
I wrote down all of the plantings they have, so I'll double check them against invasive species to make sure, and I'll include that in the letter.
Thank you, Gina.
Great. Well, do you have anything else for us?
We do not. I think that's it.
Okay, wonderful. We will forward our comments and suggestions to the planning board, and you'll hear back.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Pete.
did I misread this? I thought it was a 7 o'clock start.
It does say that on the Zoom meeting, Pete. You did not misread it. It just depends on where you read it. Minutes, so you're excused.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of our statutory advisory business. With everybody on board, we have all voting members. So, Tim, you're excused from voting. The next piece of business we have is under new business, and it involves the Horse Hill Nature Preserve signs. Mike Swisher, are you prepared to take this up?
Gina had asked me about a sign that I had personally covered early days in the pandemic. It was at the Watonic Bowman site, and it was the all cars must park between these two signs. Peter had brought it to the board earlier, and it had kind of been tabled, or I think it just went back to the drawing board, and we didn't want to address it, or didn't have time to address it then. But he heard from them a couple times in short order when the volume really started to pick up, when people were looking for an outlet and a place to go. And so they personally reached out to him a couple times, kind of pleading for the signs, at least, because people were parking over by their own clubhouse and the spaces that aren't really designed for them. So we weren't going to meet for a while to vote on it. So I went ahead and said, you know what, I'll cover the cost of the signs and the installation posts only, and I'll just seek reimbursement at a later date. And Gina had asked me, I guess maybe Tim had remembered that. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, that's all I have. I think Peter is actually looking for some other signs, but I think there was a yield sign he wanted to purchase a couple of. He and I had not talked about that, but I saw it in the materials we had for the evening.
Do you recall the cost of your outlay?
Yeah, I printed that out ahead of time. It was $125.66, and that included the two signs, the two U posts, and stainless bolts or whatnot. So $125.66 is what I ordered, and they shipped it directly to him, and he had it installed the day it was delivered. It was fantastic.
And do we know a cost on the signs that he's looking to order?
I think that was kicking around. Let me see.
I do see something.
Are they the yield signs, or are they the triangular signs that, that show you how to yield, who needs to yield to who?
The triangle ones.
Okay.
And what I see is two of them for a total cost of $43.90.
Yeah, that's the one. I guess only one. He included a picture that snapped in half somehow, and he wanted one as a backup in case it became an issue. So we didn't have to come to the board again, because with the lesser meetings, it's harder and harder to get stuff obtained for the properties.
Those signs are property agnostic. They don't really, they're not particular to anything.
Yeah.
We could use some up in Greater Woods too. We've had a couple of complaints of, people, zooming around and not yielding to the correctly. So
sure.
If you've got a price list there in front of you, can we look at the price break? If there's we buy 10 or something like that, is there any kind of?
I don't have a price list. I just have two are an amount of $43.90. That's all I'm looking at. It was just an order form screenshot.
Okay.
And it doesn't give a breakdown. I don't see a breakdown.
Right. Okay.
In fact, a dozen might be the number because it says -12, which usually means under 12 is, 21.95, under 12. So it looks like a dozen is your price break, but that's just an educated guess seeing these types of order forms before. Do I have a motion?
Mike, you gonna do it?
Which motion do you want first?
Yeah, there's two separate issues, I guess.
Oh,
If you take up Mike's order, I might be able to get you more info on pricing.
All right.
Okay. Great.
Mike, want to make the motion? And I'll second it.
Make a motion to reimburse Michael Swisher the amount of $125.66 from, I don't remember the fund number, 53? From Fund 53 for a pair of signs and installation hardware for the Botanic Home and parking lot at Horse Hill Nature Preserve.
Second.
All those in favor?
aye.
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 We have to do this via roll call vote. So I'll just go according to who I see on the screen. Steve Perkins, what is your vote?
Aye.
Matt Karen, my vote is aye. Mike Swisher, what is your vote?
Mike doesn't.
Not a voting member today.
Oh, right, sorry. I was just following the line. Gina,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gage,
Yes.
and Pete Albert.
Yes.
All right. All in favor. So thank you for that motion. Mr. Tenave, any luck?
There does not appear to be a price discount for quantity.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
So,
you.
Just to clarify, so now should Mike Swisher just send his invoice along to who to be reimbursed?
It will actually, via the minutes, that will go to community development.
Okay.
And the next finance cycle, they'll cut a check and send it to Mike.
Okay. So he doesn't have to actually send the invoice in?
No.
Okay.
Tim, did you put it campgroundsigns.com?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Because if you go to the order number 4, when I click to 3, it changes the sign price to $19.95 instead of $21.95.
All right. I put in 12. I guess as long as we give a not to exceed value, I don't think it really matters, right? You know what I mean?
Oh, right. Well, I didn't know if we wanted to get, like you said, get more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like if you order 5, it's $18.95 per sign, and then it doesn't change after that.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to do math in my head, and I put in for 12, and it looked pretty close to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Numbers. Yeah. All right.
Gage, how many were you thinking for Greater Woods?
I got 2 locations that probably could use them. And if we're gonna buy 2 for Pete, then or 2 for Horse Hill, excuse me, I suppose 5 of them would still be under $100.
What about shipping? The free shipping, Cindy?
At that quantity, yes, it's free after $29.95.
Okay.
Nice.
We are bargain hunters.
We've learned to shop online.
All right, I will make a motion. So Rosati to approve the expenditure of up to $100 to cover the cost of 5 signs to be used within the Conservation Commission at various properties. Source of funding is Fund 53.
Second,
Wait, who seconded?
Steve.
Steve, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote. Steve Perkins, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
And Pete?
Yes.
All right, in summary, all in favor? Thank you very much. That covers that item. The next piece of business we'll take up under old business is ARM grant funding. And the subnote under that is the top 8 properties to consider. Does who took the lead on that? Maybe it was me unknowing.
We voted for you, maybe, probably. Not if you weren't here.
I knew we were waiting on some ZBA data, and I may have missed it, but I just don't remember seeing it. Is that something that was produced when I was absent?
What were we waiting for?
GZA data.
GZA.
Oh, GZA. I said ZBA. I was like, what's the zoning board? What are we waiting for the zoning board for? They've given us the final report. We have it. I sent it out a while ago.
Would that be the same as the colored map with the numbers?
That was part of it, yes.
Yeah.
So we have that final one. All right, so we need to do something with it at the next.
And I'm happy to table that item. It doesn't seem like anybody's anxious to get on that. I'm not sure offhand when ARM grant acceptance is up.
I think we missed it for this year.
Yeah,
We did.
Something tells me it was May or something like that. So that's what happens when a pandemic strikes.
One of the suggestions that has been batted around was to see if we could find someone who is a little more well versed in writing grants. Then I know it's not my strong point. I don't know if anybody else wants to own it, but I am pretty much a complete failure when it comes to understanding grants. So I did talk to a friend who might be interested, so I do need to speak with that person a little bit more to see if that would work. But I think that if we have somebody that's more just a volunteer that wants to not a commission member, but just somebody that wants to volunteer some time and help us out with grant writing. So.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need a motion to table this?
No, I don't think so. And we actually, we're getting somewhere because you're going to reach out to somebody who may have some interest. And hopefully we can sort of get this a little bit higher on the priority list come, the beginning of next year so that we can actually have something together for the round of grants writing for next year. So
I'm not advocating to do it this way, but we do have 2 standing offers from both, one from GZA and one from Moosewood, that they would like to continue working with us, and if we wanted help writing grants, they wanted to be part of that. So just so everyone is aware that they are aware of this report, obviously, and wanted to be part of that grant writing. But that's probably going to be more of a professional service, so that would be a for fee job.
Well, typically when that happens, the fee is much less than the grant awarded.
Right.
So the town benefits when something like that takes place. So I do think we should strongly consider that for next year. And we'll make sure that makes the minutes, and we get that on the calendar for next year. All right, does anybody else have anything on that item? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next piece under old business, and that's update to maps with the safety zone. Eric, this was something I remember you being pretty active on. Are we prepared to move forward on this evening?
Well, I'm not the one who added it to the agenda, so I haven't added anything else to the maps.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just, I remember you being very proactive in this piece, so I didn't know if you had anything in addition to what we've historically covered with the safety zones.
Have we defined safety zones, like where we're going to put what we're going to do? Because I think really the only one we looked at is Greater Woods.
Yeah, that's my memory as well.
And do we need to consider safety zones in any of the other properties?
Well, it seems the concern was around bodies of water, like duck hunting season, right? So do other properties have the body of water that abuts people's backyards?
Yes. Pete?
Yeah, I think to date now, I think that the only issue that's arisen are the folks over by BB Lane. Am I correct?
I mean, last year, previously there were duck hunters in Listoka Pond with neighbors' backyards, adjacent. It's been an issue in other places, but BB Lane is where it's an active and ongoing issue.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the rough draft map Eric drew, and I personally didn't have any issues with it. I think I've spoken to a number of folks who are hunters in town who do have concerns that we're going to try and block off all of Greater Woods, and I told them that I didn't think that was certainly going to happen, but that there was an area around this pond that was particularly close to the houses. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, in fact, I believe where we left off our last discussion was you were gonna Pete, you were gonna set up a meeting with Eileen, you, me, and Chief Roy to discuss this and a number of other issues. So I think we were really waiting to hear from the town and the PD.
And Matt, you're correct about that. And I just was probably just around when the pandemic broke. So I'm making a note now, and Eileen's on vacation this week. So I'll see if we can get that scheduled, where now we're going to be doing more in-person stuff. So.
Okay, great. All right, so I think we can table this item till our meeting, and then Pete and I will come back to the rest of the commission once we've had time to discuss this with the chief and town manager. The next piece is Eversource line work. Prior to the pandemic, I met with the logger in charge for, it's really just Eversource's subcontractor. They did several cuts along the power lines in Greater Woods off of Wilson Hill Road. They alerted the abutters. They were in and out prior to any nesting seasons that we were concerned with. They then reached out to me a couple weeks later looking to do a cut in Wildcat Falls. I reached out at that time to Jeff Littleton of Moosewood Ecological, and he informed me that it was turtle nesting season, the beginning of turtle nesting season. So I asked the logger to hold off, and he has since been back in touch with me a number of times, looking to gain access to Wildcat Falls. I informed him that nesting season and a number of other issues have come up in that area, and asked him to postpone his cut. Then I heard back from Jeff again, and it's actually an email that came from Jeff on May 29th, and he informed me that turtle nesting goes to late June, but then the hatchlings are in the sand and in areas like under the power lines where there's high sun, lots of sand, until September. So I informed the logger of this, and he was not really happy with the request, but I told him that, you know, I would discuss this with you and with the rest of the commission, and get back to him. So where I left it with him was hold, and I'll at the next meeting, which it's been a while. So this is our opportunity to discuss. Does anybody have anything? Gina?
Yes, thank you so much for standing up for the turtles and all the other wildlife, because it's why, you know, this is, I think, what people are forgetting is Wildcat Falls is a conservation area. So I'm glad that you are thinking of conservation first and foremost. So yes, I mean, if they want to take down trees, they can take them down after September. They can take them down in October. At that point, we should have some calmness to that area. Also, there's just too much going on in there right now to have loggers add more chaos.
Matt, are they logging on the power line? Is that what they're logging for?
Yeah, just for safety concerns.
Okay, so is it the whole length of it, or is it just a specific area?
They've gone through quite a bit of town. I know the town approved the cutting on the other side of the river from Wildcat Falls.
Right.
So I know they cut those lines. And these are transmission lines, so they just don't want trees tall enough to fall on the line. But I had them hold fast on the Wildcat Falls side. It seemed like he had never heard no before. Pete?
Matt, does this also include, I know how they cut the brush down to keep it down under the lines as well. I know they're cutting any trees that might reach the lines, but they're cutting, is that including that type of, I guess, what do you want to call it, deforestation or vegetation?
Only areas that they felt that things were growing too fast. I guess they did that 2 years ago. So they were really looking for the tall trees that were, putting the transmission lines at risk. I believe they do that on like a 3 or 4 year cycle where they actually bring in a brush cutter and just cut it down to nothing. that's not what they were looking to do. Well, initially they may have been looking to do that as well, but then they scaled it back and just spoke of the, the tall trees that were, in jeopardy of touching the lines. And I still asked them to hold off completely until I had a chance to speak with you. So, by consensus, is the sound of it, we should have him hold off until September?
I guess, Matt, there's one question I have is, how can we let him proceed to a certain point? Can we mark it and say, this is our area of concern. You can move up to a certain space and you got to stop there? Or do you trust that, or do you think they'll just keep going if we let them?
Well, the cut for them is very small. It's less than a day's work.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, they're cutting from the Sahegan until they hit Everett Turnpike.
Okay.
And they got permission from DOT to cut to the Everett Turnpike. So I think what they were looking for was everything in one shot. Okay. And I spoke with them. Do you need to bring in trucks? Are you just going to bring in the loggers to cut down with saws? And they said no. When we do it, we bring a machine. We do it all with machines. Have our skidders drag everything out. One 18-wheeler, and that brought me to thinking about that access road that the DPW is supposed to fix and put a water bar in. And if they did put the water bar in, would the 18-wheeler full of logs be able to get over that? So that there were a lot of questions that came up. I didn't go to Kyle. I didn't take it any steps further. When I heard from Jeff Littleton that turtle nesting went till September, in my mind, I said, hold off till at least September, and in between now and then, I'll talk to the rest of the commission.
Now, I've noticed when I hike around some of the power lines in town that they've left a lot of those trees along the sides of the edges of the power lines. Is that a concern to this commission if they left those trees down on the ground?
Not to me.
In fact, if they bunch the trees together, it creates habitat for small critters who like to hide inside of them.
Okay.
Yeah, we purposely did that during the initial cut up in Greater Woods. There's a lot of tree carcasses that are down and they're stacked up just for that purpose.
Okay.
Cindy?
Yep. Hi, Matt. It's Cindy. I obviously totally agree. Thank you for reaching out and finding that out about the turtles. But in addition to the turtles, there's still a lot of birds that are nesting. I'm seeing a lot of young squirrels. So if these are really tall trees, there's another reason to hold off. So thank you for talking to him and holding him off. And I am in total support to have them wait until September. Thank you.
Yeah, when he called me, I actually scheduled a call with him, and I was taking it up during a time that I was doing conservation stuff, and I was reading Jeff's report as I was talking with him, and that was probably bad for him.
So, Matt, I'm curious: are they playing nice with us right now, or could they actually force their hand and say, we're going to come in and we're going to do what we got to do?
They need our permission.
Okay, even in their access way on the lines.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some point where if there's a tree that's at risk, it's also a fire risk. If a tree fell and caught fire, there's a fire risk there. But in our conversation, I did not believe that there was a risk. It's just, he's got a checklist. Every 2 years, they need to do this cut. and he would like to get it done when his trucks are in Merrimack. And he was calling me a lot when his trucks were in Merrimack, and now that his trucks aren't in Merrimack anymore, I really haven't heard from him. So I really think the ship has sailed, and he'll bring them back through in September when he gets when he gets the go ahead from us. Gage? Anything?
Yeah. So, and no one in town has contacted you about this or complained about it?
No.
No, I'm okay. I just assume wait then.
And sorry I didn't get this to you sooner. I didn't feel like it was something that I could send out via email because I had discussions with multiple parties and had emails back and forth with Jeff. I didn't want to send a meeting through email. So thanks for being patient and backing me on my decision. Appreciate it. Great. I think that takes care of the Eversource line work. The next piece is actually sort of the CC to Jeff's email, and I believe he put Steve on this. He said, hey, since you reached out to me about turtles and what species are, of concern under the power lines in this fragile, season, how are you feeling about the 2020 turtle tracking? So for the public and anybody listening, we've worked with Moosewood Ecological for a number of years, tracking turtles. So they put little trackers on the turtle shells, and they actually, Jeff Littleton has interns that work for him, and they actually track the turtles. And we followed, I don't know the exact number, but I think it was 4 turtles from Horse Hill Nature Preserve 3 years ago. We did it again 2 years ago, and then we tracked 3 turtles in Greater Woods last year. Turtles that made it outside of Merrimack and then returned. Jeff gathered a lot of data with this telemetry devices that they put on the turtle shell. We have access to all that data, and he shared it with us. It's very interesting, and it's something that he's willing and interested in doing again this year if we want to do it with him.
Did he give us any kind of proposal?
He did not. He said that he would rather do that in person. I asked for anything that he could give me, outside of a meeting. And let me just pull up the last email. Radio telemetry, sorry. Yeah, I did not receive any type of proposal or any type of request. So, yeah, I really don't know how to move forward unless we ask him for a proposal and make that an agended item for the next meeting.
Where's he? Did he say where he wanted to do it this time?
He was open to suggestions. He said, for the Blandings turtles, the best time to do that is May. So that is past. But he said it can go all the way to July. But I think that's sort of the end of the season. So we may actually be starting too late to even do it this year. This thing has really screwed up all of our all of our annual events.
So the turtle tracking is interesting, and it gets Jeff, data that he likes, but I'm not sure what it really, how much it really helps us do anything. Again, it's interesting, and I like the fact that we're collecting data and he can use it for whatever research he's doing. But we're funding, a project for him, which again isn't the worst thing in the world. It's very interesting data. We had no idea that the turtles were going that far, and you remember how much time he spent trying to track down that one that he couldn't catch. So it was, he's been using a lot of that data up, across with this research. So it's interesting, but I'm not sure how much longer do we need to keep funding the turtle tracking.
Yeah, I think the last discussions we had with him when he was in the room was if he was to do it again, he would then do a sort of a post-mortem of his findings and maybe do that in the educational classroom behind the middle school and sort of, have students and people, but a gathering that large this year is probably not a good idea anyway.
True.
So again, maybe another event that we're going to have to table and bring it up next year, but I think March is the time frame on that. We should, if we're going to look to do it next year, we need to reach out to him early and have him present the proposal. And like Gage said, we've done it before. What's in it for us? What do we get out of it? He was doing it with a grant, so it wasn't costing us a lot of money. It was sort of like an add-on to our full inventory study that we did of Greater Woods. And there was a very small cost associated with it. So the bang for the buck was really big for us to see what, we saw. I know I geeked out on watching where the turtles went. That was pretty cool. They made it all the way to New Boston. That's pretty neat.
Yep.
Turtle going that far. So, all right. I guess we can put that back in for next year and sort of start thinking about it February, March to get him on board and maybe present to us what the benefit would be for Merrimack.
Okay.
All right. That takes care of all of the old business on the agenda. The next piece we have under other business is discussions on communication correspondence received from Merrimack Conservation Commission.
Hey, Matt, I'm looking at a different agenda than you maybe. I thought there was one more item under old business.
I'm cut off, so can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, Wildcat Falls Conservation Area, continued discussion regarding parking.
Okay. All right, that's going to be a big topic, and I guess the first thing that we have is we've received a lot of correspondence from members of the community, and instead of reading all of the emails and letters that we've received and the town of Merrimack has received, we're going to make all of that, all of the letters received, all of the emails received, we're going to make that part of the meeting minutes, and it's going to be public, everything that was presented to us. It would just take far too long to read all of the emails and letters that we've received. I'm sure we have members of the public on to come on the telephone and discuss with us what they've, what their feelings are about Wildcat Falls and the Heritage Trail and the Courier Road neighborhood. I missed the last meeting, so would one of you like to bring the public and the rest of the commission up to speed on sort of where we are now?
And would you like to drive on this?
I think I saw Steve raise his hand.
I'm prepared to give a quick synopsis of what went on at the last meeting. It was a lengthy meeting. We had it because we were asked by the town council to hear about the issue from the public. We had a lot of great public comment during that. The Highway Safety Committee was tasked by town council to do a similar exercise. We voted on several motions, made several recommendations. A lot of those have already been enacted. Simple things like taking down the Heritage Trail signs, removing any references to Wildcat Falls on the website. We agreed that would go before the town council and talk about a name change. So we've done all those things. I kind of captured the highlights of that meeting. I tried to, and I provided that to the town council. The feedback I got from several of the councilors was that they watched the meeting. 2 or 3 of them, they were very appreciative that we spent that much time on the issue, and essentially said that they would review our feedback. Pete?
Steve, by the way, thank you. The document you put together and emailed to us was much appreciated. Steve has highlighted some of the things, and I know on the school end, Gina has met with folks from the school as well as the police department. I know that we've gotten CC'd a lot of these comments. When I say we, the council, as well as not only the commission, but the council has gotten a lot of the same emails. And, I'm deeply concerned. I know the other members of the council are concerned. I think we're trying to, one of the things that I've stayed on point is we're waiting to hear from the Highway Safety Committee, but they can't meet until we give the okay, which I'm hoping Thursday we give the okay for in-person but social distancing meetings. So that being said, I've heard a lot of suggestions floated around, and I think I sent a response to Kyle Fox sent a response. I think I CC'd all of you as to some of the suggestions. As far as closing the park itself to residents only, there was a concern about any federal money used for the purchase of Wildcat Falls. And then I think Kyle raised the issue of, I think we're trying to get an easement as they do this widening from the state as well. And he's wondering if the state's going to react adversely if we make it residents only. So, this is where we are. We're looking. I know that we're looking to try and create more parking spaces in other areas, and maybe get people to come in from another way. The footbridge is down, that kind of limits it. So that's right now the viewpoint from the council. If you guys want to go further with this, and we'd be more than happy to hear some more. So.
Kim, you want to jump in or you want me to?
Either way, go right ahead.
Okay.
But there is something I'd love to get cleared up, and maybe we should see if we can reach some consensus before we go much further, Gina, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So who has the authority to close the parking lot, the property, make those kinds of policy decisions for the property? I think we need to understand who that is, because I get very conflicting messages. Some of our properties are, if they are owned by us and it says owned by the commission and said in the deed, I've taken the stance in the past that those are commission properties and the commission has the final say. Properties where the deed specifies the town but doesn't specify the commission, but yet the town council or board of selectmen going back, many years, like this property. This goes back to 1995 when the ordinance was first put in and it was declared a conservation property. And I think even before 1995, the Conservation Commission had management authority on it. So I'd like us to take a stand here and say we are either the policy making board for the property or we're not. Because if we're not, all we can do is make a recommendation to the town council and wait for the town council to take action or choose not to take action, which is in essence taking action. So do we have a feeling here as to what we think? I can express an opinion beyond what I've just stated, but I'm happy to open the floor and hear what people think. I'd say Mike, yeah.
How does the Pete? How does the town council feel about as far as ownership of that property? Who gets to make the decision? Do you know?
My impression, Mike, is, and I know where you're going, Tim, and I appreciate that, but I think that they understand that it's a town property. I think they respect the fact that, and I don't want to speak out of turn. This is an impression I've been getting since this whole issue started. But there are 7 of us on this council. But it's my impression that this would be a decision that the council has to make. And I agree. I think something has to be done here. So that's my impression as far as who might make the shots. I think I've had a chance to talk to a couple folks from this commission, and I think it's important we hear from the Conservation Commission because the Wildcat Falls Committee and everybody else, the commission oversees this property, and so I've always found that it's a little bit kind of a conflict. So, I guess conflict's not the right word, but you're hoping that everybody's working together. So I don't want to drag out my answer.
So, Tim?
Yeah?
So I'm going to go on your memory here because it's obviously much better than mine. The 80, so Wildcat Falls was originally 80 acres, and then we ended up getting another parcel adjoining to it that pushed it up over 100. And that second parcel, there was something, that was a donation, or I don't remember where that second parcel came from.
I don't remember the second parcel. I'm only aware of the parcel. Are you thinking something else instead?
Well, no, I mean, because it was 80 acres.
Yeah.
And then it became a little over 100. So
no, I'm not sure it did.
It
was 87.
Yeah. It was something. It was 80 acres, and then we got another parcel somehow, and it was no longer 80 acres. And we're like, well, why are we calling it 80 acres when it's not 80 acres any longer? So that was why the name was changed to Wildcat Falls, because that was indicative of what it was.
I don't think that was the reason for the name change.
It was one of the reasons to not call it 80 acres any longer, because the property had expanded beyond 80 acres.
Well, what I can tell you is Merrimack GIS shows the same parcel as the deed shows when we purchased. Same dimension, same description.
All right.
So getting back to what Pete said, I'm getting the feeling we don't have the authority to close it down, even if we wanted to. That would have to be the town council, since they're elected, would like to have that decision. That's the feeling I'm getting, or do we have the power to do that? Probably, I don't know. It's a question, or it's a. I don't think this is not black and white here. It doesn't seem. So do we even have the authority to take a vote about closing Wildcat Falls or not?
Well, like Pete says, we should all be working together. But when it comes to creating trail days, cleanup days, managing the parking lot, adjusting trails, putting up signs, putting up blazes, all those things have been left to the commission, and we just do it. Now we're getting to something with more meat to it, or more bite to it. So, you know, at the end of the day, I think you look at the deed, and the deed doesn't say the Merrimack Conservation Commission. So, but if it doesn't, and we need a decision made on this, then we need it. Then the decision needs to be made. Or, like I said, the lack of a decision also is a decision. So, and I think just let me 1 second, Pete. I think, however we want to phrase any motions in this area, depend on you know, how we view this. So that's all.
Tim, and I agree with you, and I don't think there's anybody in the council that doesn't recognize the stewardship and the hard work that the commission puts in on Wildcat Falls and a few other properties that are, you know, that are, yes, under the authority of the council. I know, as a counselor, this decision, I feel there's something that has to be done. I'm concerned with this problem. So I would look to you folks too, as to appreciate some guidance in this on how you feel, because you've all invested a much of your time in watching over these properties. So to me, I'd love to see the commission move forward with some recommendation at the very least on what they think is the appropriate steps at this point. You know, dealing with the Wildcat Falls area. I know we, as a council in the town, have to deal with what's going on in the surrounding neighborhood. But let's face it, yeah, what we do regarding Wildcat Falls is affecting those people too. So,
I mean, thank you very much, Pete, for speaking for the council and appreciating the work that the commission has done. And I know there are a lot of commissioners that are very passionate about the property, but reading the emails that we've been getting over the past couple of weeks, the people that live in that neighborhood are affected almost all day, every day by what's going on. So I think it is now time to act. I know we could sit here and discuss. We can take calls from members of the public, but I really think a lot of the commissioners feel very passionately for the people in the neighborhood, and we are prepared to make recommendations to the town council if the council would be open to hearing from us.
Matt, I know they would be. I want to say something though. I have spent I spent time Saturday afternoon. I went down today. I've been periodically going down there to gauge the parking issues. I know there are issues, but Matt, I have to disagree when you characterize it as all day and every day. I was down there today, and the parking lot still had a couple spaces left. And yeah, there were a couple people that parked out on the roadway, but it was, it didn't seem like an issue from when I was there. And then I've been down there, and they're parked all the way up. They're going up Courier Road. So it is a problem. I just kind of I differ on that one aspect of all day, every day, but, you know, you know, I'll just put it that way. But I know, I want to hear from the commission, and I know the council does as well, and looking for some guidance.
Gage?
So if we can manage the property, that still doesn't have any effect, potentially doesn't have any effect on that street. I mean, we can close the parking lot, but that's not going to stop people from parking in the street and walking through there. So I understand why, you know, we are, you know, charged with the management of the property, and that's fine, but we're still into an enforcement issue that we don't have any ability to have an impact on. If they're going to park in the street and park in front of mailboxes and, you know, do whatever they want to do out in the street on people's front yards, I mean, we don't have any ability to make any changes there. So if, you know, for us saying, you know, making a recommendation to the town council, it's going to be, to me, the only thing we can make a recommendation to is things that we can't impact, which is, you know, we can close we can say with the parking lot's closed, emergency access only, or something like that. I do believe we can, and that's part of the parcel, but it still is not going to change anything that's going on in the street.
And Gage, I agree with you. And this is probably some of the things that this commission kicked around at the last meeting, you know, looking at how to address it. And we've kicked it around as a council saying, okay, we closed the park completely. Well, that unfairly punishes the residents of Merrimack. Or we restrict it to residents only. Then how do you keep residents only, you know, who monitors that and how? To me, that's a question I'd like to know. I mean, I guess we have somebody down at Wasserman Park Beach on the weekends that monitors people. I mean, do we suggest something like that? And then you make a great point. So we tell them they can't park here, and they park up the street and walk down anyways. There is a lot of enforcement issues. We're waiting again, like I said, Highway Safety Committee to meet and to give us some recommendations regarding no parking, which in effect, we have to make an ordinance to do that. And, you know, so, and that process is it takes about 3 meetings to get that done. And I'm certainly not against any of that. But, you know, again, it's just all about, we say it's enforcement, and I'm not going to disagree. The more the police have a presence down there, the better we are. And if there's people illegally parked, we've tried to emphasize that, and the chief has told us that they would increase the visibility. So, I mean, I'm not going to try and answer for the police department at this point, but I do hear the complaints that are being made from the folks that live down there. You know, I wish we could I wish there was a sweeping answer. And right now, it's, you know, there's so many things that have happened. We can't get through from the school. We can't get over by the Merrill's Marauder Bridge now. The only other access way is Courier Road. You know, it's a hard one. And I think we've all spent a lot of time, everybody on this commission has spent a lot of time thinking about it. So again, you know, I mean, I know some of my fellow counselors are watching tonight, and I think that they're getting the idea as well as to what's going on here. But you know, so there's a lot of thought and a lot of things that have been recommended that could happen. But as we said, it's just some of it can't happen overnight. But I agree. You know, especially from some of the stories I've read from some of these folks or some of the accounts of some of the things that have gone on down there. It's disturbing.
So I think we can keep discussing the topic. However, there are members of the public that are waiting on the phone to speak. So I do want to let you know you will be heard. You're you know, in line to speak, but I think it's important for the commission to finish our conversation, and then we'll have public comment. So I can't exactly tell you when that's going to be, but it will be soon. Gina, I know you wanted to say something. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. Things tend to change when I talk to people from time to time. Maybe they get new information, but sometimes I will hear that someone thinks that this is a good idea, and then in the next conversation, they are not as convinced that that is a good idea. I walked into this meeting with the thought that we have tried six or seven different things. We started from something simple like taking down the Heritage Trail sign on Babuzik Lake Road, taking down the Merrimack Outdoors, the link to Wildcat Falls. So we've worked our way up. Tim and I did speak with Superintendent Mark McLaughlin, Matt Chevenel, and Deputy Chief Brian Levesque. They had concerns. They were not willing to just hand over permission for us to put up signs directing overflow traffic over to the high school. So, like you said, there are not many ways in, and I have talked to the people. I have read the letters. I get, so many letters with so much information on them. One person was, a car swerved and almost hit a young teen. This is getting dangerous. And I mean, at one point I had talked to another member and the recommendation was shut the park down. Just shut it down. Shut it down temporarily and let things cool off. And I am in agreement with that. And I am prepared to make a motion to shut the park down. I wanted to make the motion in conjunction that that we would make the street a residents only parking, much like Wasserman. But I was told that this is not the right time to do that. I have talked to people in the neighborhood and said, well, then maybe what we need to do is you need to set up a petition and for an ordinance and get an ordinance going. So they are ready to start a petition and get the 50 signatures. So there are a lot of different ways that we can look at this, but the bottom line is that action must be taken, because there's people are walking down there with a case of beer on their shoulder. There's a rope swing down there over the river. I mean, it's crowded. Everybody's swimming. This is not a beach. This is a conservation area. It's being treated like a town beach for out-of-state people. And we need to stop it. And if the only way to stop it is to say the park is closed, and then we just ticket people on the street that we see going in. Someone brought up to me, maybe we need to have somebody down there kind of monitoring things, So, I mean, that is also something that we can take into consideration. If we see somebody walking through and they look like they're heading down to the beach after we've closed the park, then we call the police. Say, okay, they're using the park. They're not supposed to be using the park. How can we, what can we do to enforce that? So there are questions. However, the first step would be to take some sort of action, and we work out the problems as we need to.
Go, Tim, just go.
All right, so I agree we need to hear from the folks that have called in, and I think we should. But I'd like to take off from what Gina said, and I'd like to make the following thoughts. I am not a voting member today, and that's okay. But I think we really should understand that we in the commission can speak to the property and what goes on the property. What happens out in the streets is really the purview of the Highway Safety Committee, and we should leave that alone. I know they had an agenda out. I guess they weren't able to meet because I never saw any minutes of it, but they did have an agenda posted after our meeting. So I wonder if I guess that meeting never happened, but what I'd suggest is this. I think we should take a strong stance as the commission. We should make a strong recommendation in the strongest words possible that we close the entire property down. We close it down indefinitely until we can work out a longer term solution. We should By doing that, we will take the property away from everybody. We will therefore take the reason for being down there away. Therefore, the people that are going down there will have no reason to be parking on the streets and going there, and they'll go away. I think we as a commission should also offer to pay for any signage that's required. And we have plenty of budget to do that, and we should relieve the town of that expense and utilize our funds to do that. I also think that if we can take that bold move and the council agrees to that bold move, that we should also make a motion that says that we will fund, even on overtime, the presence of a police officer at the parking lot for the first few weekends to discourage people from going on the property, informing them that they'd be trespassing if they enter the property. We should encourage the PD to have their routine paroles of the property and ask them to cover that on their own budget as they've been doing so far. And we should just take that bold step, and then beyond that, encourage the town council to put a small subcommittee together, including members of the commission, potentially school district, or members of the town staff and themselves, to create a long-term resolution to this and not reopen the property until we've done that.
Can I just say so moved right now?
I was gonna say, was that a motion?
Well, I think you want to hear from the public before you vote. That's all.
No.
But I guess Gina moved it.
Does anybody else from the commission have anything they want to add before we? Okay, Mike Swisher.
Does that mean, however, that the residents in the Courier Road neighborhood also may not use the property for the dogs and such?
Absolutely, everybody.
That's what I figured. Just so everyone's clear on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it won't be long if we get our act together and start working on it.
Gage.
So, Pete, I know you're as close to we have as an active police member, so I'm going to ask you, a little bit of a legal. If we do that, if we say it's closed, can we honestly fine people for trespassing?
That's a great question. Am I mic'd up?
You are.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, this drives me crazy sometimes.
And I don't want to put you on the spot. I know this is not really your thing, but I mean, is that?
I think that because we have ordinances in town that some of them don't have penalties for. So this would have to be. I think this would have to create an ordinance for this. Although, if we've lawfully, it may be if we've blocked access to something, I think the authority would be the police department potentially charging somebody with criminal trespass. If we've posted and closed it and they cross over these lines to go in, I think potentially it could be a criminal trespass charge. And depending on the nature of it, it could be a violation level offense or a misdemeanor if it's a second offense. So I think potentially, yes, there could be a charge there.
Okay.
Cindy?
I agree with everything that Tim has said. Thank you. And I was also thinking of the property. Like I said, we're not really in charge of the roads, but I think we need to protect the property. And it sounds like the property's filling up with trash and whatnot. So I'm totally in favor of temporarily closing it down to everyone. Obviously, it'd be unfortunate for the residents, but for them to get relief as well, I hope that they would understand that, if somebody comes driving in and they see them going in, that they're going to want to go in too. So I agree, it would have to be closed to everybody. Thank you. And yeah, I'd like to hear from the callers.
So is that everybody from the commission that wanted to speak about the issues? Okay, I think it's time to take calls. I'm going to go ahead and prompt people to speak. There are people in queue already, and to get in queue if you want to speak and you're on the phone and you're not yet in queue, you hit *9 and you're placed in queue to speak. I'll recognize speakers by the last 3 digits of their telephone. When you are taken off mute, you'll be verbally prompted by on the phone that you're off mute. If you could please, before covering your concern, speak your name and address, and we're happy to hear from you. So let me pull up the list here. And if we could start with the telephone ending in 524.
Hi, yes, my name is Paul Marone, and I am a resident at 29 Furrier Road. And I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on what's going on. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So, I'll start with, I had some things written down that I wanted to go over, and then after some of the conversation that I've heard, I have a few answers to a few questions that may have come up and a few other things. So I'll start with what I already had, which was essentially, there's been a lot of reference to the emails and the letters that have come in. I'm going to gather that most everybody on the commission is aware of a lot of the challenges that we've had down here. But for public record and others that may not know, I mean, I think originally we've been dealing with this for a long, long time, but clearly at the end of March, beginning of April, it really started to get a lot worse. And I think originally the thought by some and by many was that perhaps it would fizzle out a little after things started to open up, and we were really thinking maybe it was a COVID issue. Although it's been going on and getting worse and worse over the years. I've been here for a little over 4 years, and I've seen it grow. But I mean, what's happened in just the last 3 or 4 weeks has been, you know, just outstanding, like disgusting and unacceptable. And I will ask everyone to just, I've been calm, cool, collective, and very polite, and everybody on the commission and their responses and the town council, everyone has been great with getting back to me. So forgive me if I get a little emotional just because we've been dealing with it for quite some time. But I mean, just this, you know, I've had, you know, 2 open fights break out in front of my house. We've had to call for people having sexual relations while naked in their vehicle outside. You all know about the trash. I mean, it gets cleaned up in the parking lot, but you should see the falls this morning. I mean, coolers and beer cans and people coming in with, you know, tubes and grills and having full-on barbecues. I think someone stated earlier, it's a conservation place, not a public beach, and that's the type of stuff we've been seeing. And like I said, I think everybody pretty much knows that type of stuff that's going on. I mean, what I saw last night, which many of you know, the email and pictures that I may have sent out about, you know, the people in the water taking like sexual pictures for like the cover of a magazine. I had to pull my children out of there because I couldn't let them see that. It was so horrible. And another big concern right now that I think the town and the Conservation Committee should be extremely concerned about is the amount of cliff jumping. I mean, we're not talking about 1 or 2 people here or there. We're talking about all weekend long, you know, Tuesday night at 8 o'clock at night, and I got 27 cars parked out here, and everyone's jumping off the cliffs, you know? So I think from a safety standpoint, it's just gotten really out of control. But again, all that information is in writing. The pictures have been sent. I think you guys know what's going on. So I really would like to talk about the solutions that were, you know, have been brought up. Someone had mentioned earlier the name of 80 acres and what the reasoning behind that and so on and so forth. I just thought I might add that what's really the issue behind that in the Wildcat Falls, if this clears it up from everyone, is what's happening is it's 2020. Everyone uses their phone, right? So they take their phone out, they Google Wildcat Falls because it's on every website everywhere, magazines, it's being broadcasted everywhere, and they follow their GPS, brings them right here. So I think that's why changing the name was a long-term type solution. It takes a long time for that stuff to filter itself out, but that was the reason behind that. I wanted to talk about the closing. I won't say that I speak for everyone in the neighborhood, but I can say that I speak for a large majority when we ask and try to understand why it seems like every other park and hiking, I mean, just everything in the country was closed up instantly without any challenges at all. And this one seems to be so difficult. So I appreciate those of you who mentioned that as an option. Now, the last thing that any of us in this neighborhood, in the area around, want to do is not be able to come down here because we love it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we bought our house. It was a quiet, dead-end type neighborhood with this beautiful property. And we're all so fed up that we're willing to accept the fact that we can't go down there if that's what it takes. And I do believe that that will work because the no parking signs that were put up had a major impact. We've seen a lot of, so my point being is that I believe that if this park was closed for a period of time, all these people that are driving half hour, 45 minutes and so on to come here, they will come, they will see it's closed. They might do it a second time, and then eventually they will stop coming back. And I think that buys us the time to come up with the long-term solution, which, again, everybody really does seem to think will work around here, even if we can't make the park or the conservation. I should make sure I clarify that. It's conservation land. It's not a park, right? So even if we make the conservation land, if we can't make that resident only, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to make parking on the street resident parking only. And I believe people will abide by those signs. And the ones that don't, we've now given the police department something that they can work with. Because right now, that's the biggest challenge. We were asked to call, and we call quite a bit when we see things going on, but they can only do so much. You know, when I called the other night because there were groups of teenagers carrying 30 packs down to the falls to drink and jump and have a party, right? I mean, they don't have the personnel to ride their bikes down there and find these people, right? So I think that long term, putting that out on the street, and once that lot is full, I really think that will work. And I think a lot of people here do. And I think I appreciate everybody listening. I had so much written down, but I think I covered most of it. Essentially, I guess I'll just finish at the moment and let someone else speak with the fact that we have been calling, we've been writing, we've been asking. We're having a real hard time understanding why, you know, the park over by with the playground at it, that can get closed down. The school, you know, the skate park, everything else can get closed down, but this seems to be difficult. And we're like, enough is enough. It's like, I know we said all day, every day, there are the moments of quiet. Right now happens to be one. There's only 11 cars down here at the moment. But we would never see 11 cars 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You'd be lucky if you saw one, you know? So I think these things will work long term, but I know it takes time to make it a resident-only parking area or a resident-only conservation land. So right now we need to close it. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go into the next public comment. I just do want to say thank you very much for keeping it brief. If somebody else has covered your topic, You know, it's not wrong to come on and say, I echo what, you know, say Paul believes, and I'd like to add X, Y, Z. But you can see that we're going to make a recommendation to town council. I believe that's what is going to come out of this meeting this evening. And your comments are going to help us craft that. So we'll move into the next caller, telephone number ending in 660.
Hi, this is Tom Koenig at 1 Danforth Road. I'm chairman of the town council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I had called in to support what Pete was saying as a view from the town council. I agree with a lot of what I hear here. I've gotten a lot of the emails, and so I understand where people are coming from and what's going on. We do have an agenda for this Thursday at the town council meeting. It's going to be under old business under 1E. We may be spiking it out as a specific talk about Wildcat Falls, Watson Park, and Wasserman Park. So it's not just Wildcat Falls that's having a problem. We have this problem going on in multiple places in town. And we're trying to figure out how to best understand and control those. So I appreciate what you're doing. I suggest going ahead with your motion. I know that we're in contact with legal to try and understand the questions that Tim asked at the beginning as to who's in charge of being able to do something as dramatic as close down the park. If for some reason the council finds that they can't live with the fact the commission's taken that step, we'll certainly move to overrule. But, you know, that would be our prerogative anyway. But I still think that the commission should move forward and do the best they can to conserve the property, to manage the property. We'll work with the police to manage the roads and the public safety committee to deal with that. And so I encourage you to move forward and do what you feel is appropriate. As we've tried to say a couple of times amongst various people, we'll continue to work together and make this work out as best we can. It is a complicated issue. There's a lot of things that make it difficult to just make a blanket decision to something down. Kid Cove is a much simpler to control, more obvious COVID-19 effective response thing where all along they've been suggesting that people get out. They don't want kids playing on playgrounds together because they're transferring too much stuff. You can't possibly keep it clean. Hopefully walking through the woods, you're not as susceptible. So for those people that think we should be able to just slap a sign up and close it, it is more complicated. I'm not trying to trivialize it. I'm just saying that it's a problem that we're all struggling with and trying to get down. So we're not ignoring any of you. And certainly appreciate the work that you guys are doing and considering how to manage and how to best conserve this property. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was good to hear. I appreciate your comments. The next caller and next piece of public comment will come from the telephone ending in 003.
Oh, hi, everybody. I didn't even know I was going to be speaking tonight. My name is Paul Labrie. I live on Beebe Lane. I talked to you folks the last meeting. Back then, I wasn't necessarily in agreement with closing down any of the parks. I think, having gone down there myself, I think it's probably time to close it down to give everybody time to cool off and find a good resolution. And that's knowing that people will go from Wildcat Falls, that not necessarily the people that are going down to swing on the rope swing and go swimming, but hikers will end up wanting to go at the other conservation areas, which sort of exacerbates the parking everywhere else. I guess the one comment that I do want to make is that as you go through with the, looking at various parking restrictions and, residents only parking, that you make it more comprehensive, that you look at all of the possible entryways to all of the conservation areas. And where there's not a stated parking area like at Horse Hill or at Wildcat, that you come up with some sort of a plan to either line up some parking areas via, yellow lines on the street or whatever. But again, I think you need to treat it. You have the emergency issue at Wildcat, which obviously needs to be addressed. But I think you have to make it, as part of that, more of a comprehensive parking sort of solution everywhere, because every place is getting kind of overloaded with cars at this point. So again, thanks for your diligence on this. I do appreciate it. I know it's difficult getting hammered by the public every week and every day with the emails, but find a solution, make it work. It has to be a town-wide solution. You can close Wildcat, but it's just going to move stuff around. So good luck with it. Thanks.
Unmute, Matt.
Sorry. Thank you, Paul. The next caller will be the phone ending in 533.
Hi, my name is Julie Schneider-Derubis. I live at 12 Hartwood Drive. I don't live on Courier Road, but I have family members and close friends that live at the end of Courier. And on multiple occasions when I've gone down to visit or bring items down there, people have car doors open. They won't close them to allow you to pass. I had one gentleman when I was watching a house for the weekend offer me $10 to park in the driveway because he couldn't find a place to park. I had other people blocking mailboxes when I was covering it for that weekend. So I just wanted you to hear from somebody that does not live on Courier Road or down there, but frequents down there due to family and friends that live there. And it's very disruptive. I can't see a fire engine or rescue getting down there sometimes because they're not parking actually on the side of the road. They're parked out more towards the middle of the road because they don't want to be on the side of the road because they see the signs. So that's just my thoughts. I thought you would like to hear from somebody that doesn't live there but frequents down there due to family and friends. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Julie. Our last caller with their hand raised to speak is a caller ending in 821.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Karen Labonte. I'm a resident of 25 Sandhill Drive. Also the chair for the subcommittee for Wildcat Falls. I wanted to just extend my appreciation and thanks to all of you on the commission, to the residents of the area there at Wildcat Falls, and just appreciation that things are a little bit more out of control than what I've ever expected them to be. I remember the property being just, there's an echo here, I'm sorry, with my voice on the phone.
Karen, as a suggestion for you, if you're watching this on Facebook or on television, just mute your computer or your TV.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Try not to watch the TV. Just speak freely.
Okay. Gotcha. This will be better. Thank you.
Yep.
I remember the property just being a very simple place 9 years ago when I started walking with my little dog. It's just a pristine place, a place to just go and be, amongst nature. It's like a little diamond in the rough. And through the development over time, over the years that we've, the energy that the Conservation Commission, our subcommittee, the Michael Laverne Memorial Foundation, just people in general that took an interest in that property, to really nurture, to care for, and just enjoy. I've gone down there several times for the past 2 weeks just trying to find a parking space. I've actually videotaped my process, which was like a 7-minute process, just trying to enter that parking lot, and seeing the, just seeing the congestion that was there, and people not really caring, to pay attention to the signs that were in the parking lot itself. Again, the coolers were out. People were carrying beers. A woman that was sitting with the companion at the beginning of that open space, there just to the right as you enter the parking lot, my window was down, and she said, "You may not want to try parking down there. We're having our picnic up here because it's just crazy. We can't get a spot." So I haven't been able to walk that property for the times that I've gone down there because I haven't been able to find a spot, and I did not want to park out in the street in that neighborhood. Anyway, the garbage is there. I think that you guys have done a great job trying to address the issues. I have companions, I have clients and friends that live in that neighborhood that were afraid to speak up initially because they did not want that property to be closed to them to have access. It's moved beyond that point. And so they're willing, to let that piece go, to not have access to that property. I just appeal to you folks to please, somehow or the other, we're going to remedy this. I really would hope that the commission would vote to, shut this property down for right now, bring it to the town council, let the powers that be do what they need to do, but let's be considerate and let's protect, the well-being of these people in that neighborhood, the kids. Hopefully just let things chill and cool down to a point where, there can be some positive resolutions. I miss the place. I love the place. I'm just not able to get there. And I really thank you for, everything that you're doing. And I'll just let it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And you can tell Karen has some passion about the property, and we appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us, Karen. So our last commenter, the last hand I see raised to speak, is a phone ending in 547.
Hi, this is Brenna Hansen. I live at 3 Courier Road. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you for your time, both tonight and over the past month, as I've repeatedly been sharing my concerns and looking for a solution. I know many of you have responded and shared the frustrations that we as neighbors have. We feel like we've been very patient, and it's kind of just time is running out. The situation is deteriorating to a really dangerous level. My children can no longer walk their dog or ride bikes in the neighborhood as the cars speed by with no regard to pedestrians. God forbid one of us tried to ask them to slow down, then you get an earful of cursing and swearing, things that my kids just don't need to be hearing. We've invested time personally picking up trash and invested money purchasing signs. I feel like I've played by the rules of Chief Denise Roy, and quite honestly, half the time I've called, I've felt ignored or disregarded. We seem to all get different answers in terms of what rules are enforceable. Most recently, I've learned that the signs down there aren't enforceable. I just feel like it's time for Merrimack to step up and take action, put in time or money, whatever it takes at this point. And I'd just like to strongly recommend to both this group as well as the town council. And at this point, I have no shame in begging, but for you to do something now. You can close the park until the resident-only signage can be posted. I just think that's the only solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you very much, Brenna. So at this point, that is all the public comment we had on the telephone. Again, I'll reiterate that we will be adding the public comment that came in via email and letter we'll be adding that to the minutes for this meeting. So the minutes for this meeting will be extensive. They'll have, all of the comments that came in via telephone and email and letter. They'll also have our comments in discussion. So I think we now have heard a lot of commissioners' viewpoints. We've heard the members of public on the phone, and for the last several months leading up, we've had comments as well. Does anybody wish to discuss further before we make a motion?
We have a motion on the table.
Tim?
Yeah, just a quick comment. People should be aware that alcohol is not permitted on the property, glass is not permitted on the property, fires are not permitted on the property, cleaning up after one's dog is required for this property. Those are all parts of Chapter 111 or other chapters in the town code. They all carry a $100 violation penalty that can grow. We're actually a violation in accordance with RSA 31:39 Roman numeral 3. So there's a whole lot going on here. So those things are certainly enforceable. Loitering on the conservation property after hours is also an issue too, and can be handled by current town code. Just want to let folks know that. So if you see alcohol, if you see people leaving animal waste, if you see glass, you are certainly welcome to inform and call the police department and say that people are in violation of Chapter 111 of the town code. Thank you.
And I agree with Tim said it very well, that those are violations. And the dawn to dusk or the dusk to dawn curfew at the park, if the residents there see people in that lot getting out or whatever, call the PD. We'll get a car down there and we'll address who's in that park. That's one issue that I heard earlier too, is people coming in there at nighttime. So.
Okay, so two things. First of all, I think we're going to close public comment because nobody else has come in to comment, and we heard several very informative comments. So I'm going to close public comment at this point. We'll finish our discussion, and then we'll vote on the motion. It is yet to be seconded. Is there any other discussion? Gage? Unmute.
Unmute.
Yep, I know, just a second. So I'm not debating the comment, the motion. I just want to make sure we're all clear on it. So Tim, you kind of made the motion by default. But in this motion, we're also going to include funding for signs, funding for police details. I mean, at some point in time, I think we need to put a little bit of boundary around those, because it's how long.
Yeah, I would also like to add to Gage's comment. We know of 120 telephone calls since March. Sorry, Jeannie, do you have the exact number?
102.
102 since March. Do we know if any fines were issued or if any citations were issued?
I do not know that.
Okay,
So PD has received that many calls, or community development?
Those what I ended up doing, because at the last meeting, Chief Roy had talked about, people need to call.
Yep.
So at one point, she had said there was so many calls in March. So I said, I wonder how many calls there actually were. So I went through the logs from March 1st. I literally sat here for 2 days and I scrolled through those logs. Every time I'd hit Courier Road or Hemlock, I know I'm a sad life, don't I? As I scrolled through, I'd write it down. So I came up with somewhere in here, I have 4 pages of college ruled notebook paper. A couple of them are things like found license, which I give great kudos to the people Courier Road and Hemlock, because if they found a cell phone, they called the police and reported it. If they found somebody's license, they reported it. So, but for the most part, they were and I'm not sure, Pete, what's direct patrol? Because most of them were direct patrol. There were probably about between 20 to 30 motor vehicle MV violations, but parking violations, but most of them were direct patrol.
Now, Gina, the PD has a program where if they have an area that they've identified as having issues, they assign it directed patrols for that sector. So the guys are directed to spend more time in that area to, I say the guys, the men and women are directed to spend more time in that area to specifically address this issue. But if it's the sector car alone, they've also got a significant amount of area to cover, because there are only 4 sectors in this town, and this town is about 40 square miles. So, that's geographically, but neighborhood wise and so forth. So, but that's what directed patrols are. And they try I know that they try their best to get in as much as possible. So
So is that not a call? That is something that they do on their own?
Well, they do it to log it in so that when folks like us want to ask questions of, well, how often are you guys getting down here and so forth, that they can give us an answer. So when an officer goes out on patrol, he may drive into Courier Road, move around, watch the traffic and everything, and then call the station on the radio and say, log me in as a directed patrol for the Wildcat Falls Conservation Area. And the dispatcher makes that note in the log. Okay.
So that's not in response to a call. So that would change my numbers significantly then, because I did mark on there why they were down there, and many of them were directed patrols. So, okay.
So, I mean, let's just say there were a lot of calls, and it's not clear on how many actual contacts were made to people breaking the law. But I myself was responsible prior to being chair of this commission as a commissioner. I was tasked with leading a patrol that was commission funded, and it funded police patrols in Greater Woods. And you guys all know that I've been on record saying that I was disappointed with the patrols and the action that was taken or not taken. So I'm slightly uncomfortable with spending commission dollars to fund patrols that I think should be ongoing in the town to begin with. But that's just one member of the commission. Tim?
Yeah, just to clarify, when I was speaking, I said we'll leave the patrols to the police department because that's what they do. What I was suggesting that we cover the expense for the police department is for an officer to be present at the parking lot for an extended period of time over 3 weekends to inform people that they're no longer allowed on the property, not to enter the property, not to move around, but to be there at the entrance to discourage people from going in.
At the one entrance?
Yes, the primary entrance where we're having an issue. Yep. But I also suggested that we purchase signs to place throughout the property informing people that the property is closed.
probably just recommend reducing it to 2 weekends. To save a little and but to be a deterrent for those who are showing up.
Yeah, I was concerned about the holiday weekend coming up. If that fell on it, we might see a different group.
Yeah, let's just have it include the 4th. Yeah, wherever it starts, include the 4th.
As another suggestion, perhaps we might want to put it back up on the website and put a message that it's been closed until further notice. Because if people do Google it, they might reach our page and realize it's closed and save the trip and the traffic into the neighborhood.
Pete?
You know, as far the cost of a police officer being down there, I think it's great that the commission is considering this, and I guess it's all dependent on a vote. And then it's dependent on a vote by the council. But I certainly would recommend that the town take part of this, and we allot some overtime patrols specifically for the lot, as Tim has suggested too. So you will hear that from me, that the town takes some of that burden for that. And I think that if this action is taken, I know that if this action is taken, the town's going to have to issue a press release as well, as long as putting it on our websites and so forth, but getting it out to the media to let people know, again, if that happens.
That would be great if the police would take it upon themselves to do that. But we don't know that tonight.
No, Mike, we don't know that tonight. I think it's going to be a meeting of the council, but I think that the direction of this commission isn't going to hurt the situation. You know, I think what differentiates, and Tom Koenig made a great point about, we are having issues at Wasserman and at Watson. And I want to be hesitant to say, but I think this is directly impacting the neighborhood, Wildcat Falls, I should say. This is directly impacting that neighborhood. You can't point your finger on a direct impact, although there is an impact to the parks themselves, but to a neighborhood surrounding those other parks. This is really the surrounding neighborhood issue.
Mike?
I'm just a little curious. I don't know if Tim, you had an idea of what this might look like, but when the police is gone, or perhaps when the police officer is there over a couple weekends or 3 or whatnot, how do you envision just logistically closing off that entrance? I mean, I would assume safety, emergency vehicles still need to access there. There's some maintenance things, so it's we've had people move whole boulders to get at other parts of the park that are trying to keep them out. I'm just trying to picture how it's going to look.
So we won't keep the honest people out, and we certainly can't keep the walkers out. But in discussing this with Kyle Fox, I did kick that around a little bit, and yeah, boulders would not be useful because emergency access would not be permitted, especially for fire or for, unfortunately, if someone was injured. They disregarded the signage. But Kyle mentioned that we can certainly have signs printed in a few days, large signs posted at the entrance. He can put up these orange barriers that you'll sometimes see on the highway that are designed to let emergency vehicles drive over them, but they're large enough and in your face enough so that someone would be hesitant to just take their car and drive over them if they wanted to. So the point would be pretty clear that you're not allowed to enter. So
sure.
I think those would be the type of barriers you see in front of Kids Cove right now.
Yeah, I think they're large, pointy, and they'll flop over if you drive over them or something. So
maybe I'll have to go check that out.
Tim, would you mind restating your motion and reminding me, what was it seconded?
I don't know if it was seconded.
It was not.
Okay,
I'll second.
Can you repeat the motion?
please.
In essence, I asked that the commission vote to strongly recommend to the town council to close the property completely immediately. And furthermore, to fund a police officer being at the entrance of the property over 3 weekends in order to discourage access, erect signs, and to authorize the commission to pay for signs that the town would erect to stop access to the property, informing people that the property will be closed indefinitely until further notice, and to warn them that they may be subject to trespass if they violated the closure.
So there's Tim's motion. Cindy? Second. Do we have any other discussion?
Oh, Fund 53. The signs.
I know also Tim originally had mentioned also making a suggestion, I believe, to the town council about the possibility of creating a small subcommittee to explore long-term solutions, and he had specifics about that as well. I don't know if that's a separate motion or it's going to be tied in.
I think he said it really well.
Yeah. Why wouldn't that be the Wildcat Falls subcommittee with their ex officio member?
They have no authority to do anything. I think you want a subcommittee that can take action and suggest action. And I think it should be made up of town councilors and potentially members of this commission and other interested parties as the town council saw fit.
Maybe highway safety as well. I don't think they've still weighed in at all.
Steve?
I was trying to write down everything in Tim's motion. How many weekends were we gonna fund a police detail? 3. Thank you.
Do we need to put a dollar amount for the signs, not to exceed? No? Okay, good. I still second.
Do we want to put the verbiage on the signs, or do we want to discuss what the signs will actually say? And how many signs we will need and where we will put them?
Well, I think in the discussion we talked about closure and violation. I think in order to enforce trespass, we're going to need a number of signs. So, and the whole idea of not putting a dollar number on it is to say that we wholeheartedly put our money where our mouth is on this one.
Okay.
So all of Fund 53 for 3 weekends and some signs.
Catching.
Is it time for a vote?
Time.
Okay, and this is again a roll call vote. Steve, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Gina, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
All right. Unanimous in favor of Tim's motion. Thank you, everybody.
So we are on the agenda for Thursday. Tom Koenig confirmed that. So I'm not sure, Pete, at this point now, so it will go to town council, and do you think that it will, I mean, do I need to speak? Will you speak? Does Tim need to speak? How will this be addressed to town council?
It's under old business, and we've addressed it in one meeting in particular, but I also, we've been doing a pandemic update and change, obviously opening things up. But this may be the reverse if we address it in that manner as well. So I think there's two avenues, but I think that, I'd like to see the council get together and take some action at this meeting on Thursday. But if you want to, certainly if you want to get up and speak, Gina, I'm going to speak to it as I voted tonight. I don't think it hurts. I know that there's going to be limited participation for people coming in because of guidelines, but I think, to me, I experienced, one of the things I felt was that there was some hesitancy by, I don't want to, I guess, the town, because there was some feeling that, I'm not going to blame anybody or say anything, but I got this feeling that somebody felt that was maybe 2 or 3 people that were making this was a concern to them. I believe it's a bigger concern in Courier Road in that area. And so, I think I heard talk of a petition for a proposed ordinance. And I think if you could get a significant number of those folks in that neighborhood to sign it, that makes it clear to the town and to councilors like myself that this is not 2 or 3 people, that this is the neighborhood. So that's another suggestion to follow up with too. And the people that have talked about it, reach out to the council and the folks that haven't yet and express their opinion. That's my other recommendation, because I'm interested in hearing it. And and there's been great follow-up by some folks, but I have to admit, it's been a core group of 5 speaking for the neighborhood. I'd love to hear from the others too.
Okay. I have corresponded between Amy Brenna and Paul Marone. And we did talk about the ordinance and, or the petition for the ordinance. And I had, what is now warrant Article 8. I just asked Mary Beth Raven, who was working on that, if she would just send me a copy of it so that I would have some sort of outline, because I've never done an ordinance before as far as that. I went and I looked at the ordinance for Wasserman, so I'm going to try to help the neighborhood put together a petition. And they're pretty confident that they can get that signed into the town council before Thursday.
Okay, and just keep in mind, Tom made a great point that we've got the town legal counsel looking into a number of these questions. Okay. I've even asked him to look into the concerns of the rope swing and liability and so forth. So there's a whole series of questions that we need to hear from the legal counsel.
Okay. So, Tim, I don't know. If I submit a public comment letter, I don't feel like I really need to be taking up town council meeting time. Do you think that I should be speaking, or do you have something that you would like to talk at the meeting, or?
I think it'd be great if one of us could be there and offer to answer questions.
Okay.
But I suspect we have other members of the council watching this meeting now, or will watch it prior to. So I'm not sure you want to take time away from any of the residents that may wish to speak. So
just it. I don't want to waste time,
yeah,
reading information. So I can certainly be available Thursday night.
I think it might be useful for the council to hear from the residents about our vote today versus the ordinance, because I think the ordinance is step 2 or step 3. It's not step 1. And I think we should strive to accomplish step 1 before we go to the next step.
Okay.
So Thursday I could make if necessary, but I have another pressing matter that I would prefer not to be tied up with a meeting if I can help it.
No, and that's fine, and I'm happy to be there. It's just a matter of, quite honestly, you're better spoken than I am about these things, so.
It just takes passion. That's all it takes.
Oh gosh, I got plenty of that. So okay. Okay, so I'll plan to be there Thursday. I'm all set.
Great. Does that cover the Wildcat Falls discussion? Or is there anything else?
So I'd like to bring up one other thing in regards to Wildcat Falls, just as an information update, and because I suspect there's probably still people listening. The town is doing a number of paving projects, and as we've asked the town to do in the past, it looks like they may have the opportunity to put regrind down in the parking lot and entrance from the roadway, which would significantly improve the condition of the parking lot, remove the rutting, and allow for potential striping of the parking lot to better enforce the parking spaces that are there. So I don't know if it's absolutely going to happen. It could likely happen, and I just wanted to make the commission aware that that's something that the Public Works organization will probably move forward with if in fact they have the material to do it, because it has been something we've been wanting them to do for a number of years now. And I'm hoping that people won't view this as a way to defeat the other things that are going on. It's just something that we really need to tend to. So I don't think it requires a vote of us, but if people want to nod their heads or say that they agree with that thought, I think that would be helpful and inspire some confidence with our town staff.
I think that's great. Now, are you the point of contact for DPW on that?
No, I was just talking to Kyle about about how to limit access if we were to close the property, and he just brought it up that he thought this might be the year that they could do it, and he was concerned that people might view that negatively when in fact it really is a positive thing that needs to happen. So I prefer that the chair be that, unless you want me to be that point of contact. As a commission, I'm happy to take that role.
No, I just hadn't heard a word, so it was news to me and maybe everybody.
Yeah, it's fairly recent, and I knew we were going to have the meeting, so.
Great. Well, thanks for letting us know.
Okay. That's all I have.
Well, while we're under subcommittee, Gina probably doesn't have anything else on Wildcat. Mike, do you have anything on Horse Hill?
Well, I mean, obviously we haven't met. The last time we did meet in person, there was some expenditures approved. So I think Pete was looking to coordinate to try and get some of those funds so that some materials could be purchased and do some bridge work and some repairs. It's the prime season for that, really. But no, I mean, there was a few minor concerns. I mean, one weekend there was some dirt bike usage. Folks, never really got a good look at them. Another weekend, I think probably the same Eversource folks were doing some trimming below the lines on both sides of Natticook, down all the way almost to Greens Pond, and then within Horse Hill a bit. And it's disturbed a little bit of a beaver pond. The beavers actually were opportunistic down near the end of Rocky Trail and created some flooding issues. It's just the sort of thing where, some of the folks were concerned about it. I think it's kind of like at Listoka Pond, where beavers are going to do what they're going to do. And, if we eventually have to reroute a trail, perhaps we'll take a look at it. But it was during a more high water time, and now we're in a drought. And I don't think it's going to be much of an issue, at least in the short term. But no, we're anxious to meet again. I don't, somebody had mentioned, maybe it was Pete, that they're going to look at possibly doing in-person meetings again. So perhaps with that will come authorization on subcommittees. I don't know. But yeah, when I have something more formal and I have a meeting to report, I will do so.
Thanks, Mike. Gage, do you have anything for Greater Woods?
No, we've not had any recent meetings, so there's nothing much to report. although there is a black bear roaming around up there. Lots of sightings. And lots of, or lots of bird feeders missing.
Gage, have you heard anything? Is there any more news about the logging that took place down where Blood Road, where that development's going in?
I've not heard anything particular about it. If you go back and look at the plans, that's really right where the plan said it was going to be happening. There's going to be some type of detention pond right there, and that entrance to the ridge trail is right through what looks like on the plan is going to be the detention pond. So the beginning of that trail is probably going to have to be rerouted a little bit, but that's work that was approved and going in. So there's really nothing we can do about it. I've not heard. I know, Matt, you heard that someone was injured during that initial cut, and I've not heard anything from anybody after that from the town. I've not heard a thing.
Neither have I.
Thanks, guys.
All right, after subcommittee updates, presentation of the minutes. Now, I'm still on page 4 of 27. I'd be happy to accept a motion to table those minutes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Oh, okay. Different direction, but let's go with it.
I think we have two sets of minutes here too, right? The March 3rd or March 2nd minutes, and then the May 19th minutes.
I only have the May 19th on the agenda, but I'll accept any motions.
Should we start with the easy one? I'll make a motion to accept the March 2nd minutes as amended.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Pete. Go ahead, Steve.
Someone help me with that?
Not read the March 2nd ones.
I'm going to want to go over 2 corrections just to have you point out the 8 I missed.
Wow, I was going to suggest we table that one because I didn't read those. But if you guys have some corrections, that's cool, and we can go from there. So wait a minute. So Steve, you made the motion. Who seconded it?
Pete.
Pete.
Come on, Cindy. Don't let us down.
I quickly read through that. I didn't see any in that one, and I didn't get through the second meeting.
I myself never got to take a look at either of them. I apologize.
So let's hear your 2, Steve.
I might have embellished that detail. I read through them. They look factually accurate. I didn't look for semicolon misuse or anything like that. But they looked factually accurate, and I was happy with them, and I reviewed them in full.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see anything. So.
I guess we go roll call vote to accept the minutes of March, is it 4th?
Second.
March 2nd.
With no changes, right?
No changes. Steve, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote in favor. Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
All right. All in favor. Do you want to make your motion again, Pete?
Did we lose Eric?
Oh.
No, he's there. It's just the video's done.
What was the date on this one, Matt, that I made the motion?
May 19th.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the minutes of the Conservation Committee meeting from May 19th, 2020.
Second.
Moved by Pete, seconded by Steve. corrections?
I do have a couple of those. Right up to page 15. All right, page 1. Under members of the commission participating, Michael Swisher, just capitalize the M in member to keep it consistent. On page 8, line 36, Commissioner Swisher stated he is not in favor, not his is not in favor. On page 9, line 4, capitalize the C in commission. And also on page 9, line 25, capitalize the F in Fox. I think that's all I have. Yep, that's all I have.
I had, sorry. I'm going back. I usually I have them printed out, so I make it, look it on there, and I just, to make sure, I have that this was page 9, row 36, change belief to believe. But I want to confirm that it is on page 9.
Row 36, you said?
Yes.
I don't see believe in that line.
Okay, so I didn't write the right page down.
What was it in reference to?
Chief Roy was talking. Let me find it here. I only got to page 14. Ah, here it is. It is on page 11. Yeah, page 11, row 36. Stated she does not believe it is a smart choice.
Very good.
Just as a small point, after page 18 are letters that became part of the minutes, so those go in as sent in.
Right.
So.
Okay.
No other changes?
Nope. Nope.
All right, let's go by roll call vote. Steve, how do you vote?
Yes.
I'll abstain from that vote. I wasn't at the meeting. Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
And Pete?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Guess we can open it up for public comment again. Pete, do you want to wait for commissioner comments, or are you gonna?
Oh, no, all right, sorry, I thought this was just general comments from any of us, but I'll wait my turn.
Okay, we do have one member of the public still on, so I was just gonna give them a chance. I don't see a hand being raised, so I guess we can move on to commissioner comments. And Pete, you get the first go.
Well, hey, I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow's election day, so if you didn't get an absentee ballot in, come on down and vote. I think it'll be a pretty safe atmosphere. You'll find it all 3 polling places. Thank you.
Great reminder. Thanks, Pete. Steve, do you have anything?
I just had one comment, Matt, and I know we all see the correspondence, but it's, just want to thank Gina. She's had incredible tenacity following up and getting back to all these many people, all these concerned residents, and just done it in such a timely fashion. So thank you for that, Gina.
I'm very grateful to all of you for understanding the need and for voting to approve closing, and now hopefully the town council will also approve close and we can give this poor neighborhood people some relief.
And, I think I'd be remiss not to thank you as well, Gina, but also to say, yeah, the neighborhood's been affected by this, but the property's been affected too. The litter, the side hilling that's going on by the overuse of the trails. There's so many people going right from the trail into the water. Once we have a major rain event, which I'm sure we will, everything's going to wash right into the river on all those eroded banks that have been created by so many people going down to the river. So the property is really going to take a hit from this as well. We can't see it today, but the property is going to need some time to heal as well from just overuse. So as commissioners, I think that's sort of our, that's our mission, is to make sure the property is safe, and the animals and and the fauna, and it's taken a hit. So I think closing the park is right for not only the neighbors but for the park as well.
Yes, thank you.
Mike Swisher, do you have anything?
Nothing really from me tonight. I'm pleased something's moved forward that's actionable for the folks at Courier Road.
Gina, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Cindy?
I also wanted to thank Gina. She's put so much time into this, and just thank you for everything you're doing on email, responding to people. There's been such an influx, and even other topics, and I'm always very impressed when I read your letter, because I'm not a good writer, and I read that, I'm like, wow, she says that so well. So, thank you so much, and I'm glad that you took the job of answering those, and I'm sure everyone in the Courier neighborhood is indebted to you.
Well, if we get some action, then I'm not going to call it indebted, but I'll be happy that, they can.
I'll be grateful.
Mike, do you have anything?
Yes, just one thing. This is kind of like, we're gonna run into this enforcement and this problem as a town, like they have it at Watson Park. If we ever move forward with Scalar, there's gonna be issues. There's definitely growing pains here with our properties and with this town, and we're gonna need town support to get this enforcement and to get beyond these things. And so just keep that in mind.
Tim, do you have anything?
Yeah, sorry, just some more info. So I had an email exchange with Becky in the town manager's office. It's looking like we'll take up Chapter 111 with the town council on August the 20th at that meeting there. I'll be putting a package together for the town council to review, hopefully by August 1st, so that they'll have time to review our Chapter 111 recommendations. And I'll share that packet with all of you folks as well, so you can be aware. And if you want to participate at that meeting, you can put it in your calendar. So the other thing is, we had some correspondence over the last week with Merrimack Village District looking to do test well activities on the Wasserman Conservation property. And I think we'll discuss that at our next meeting, I believe, potentially. I think that's what you thought, Matt. Or did I get that right?
Yeah, I don't think it came in early enough to make this agenda, or in time to make this agenda.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's probably best that we put it there.
Then the last thing, so I took a few weeks ago, I took a kayak ride down the Merrimack River, put in at Depot Street in Merrimack in the Reeds Ferry area, and took out in Nashua by Greeley Park. While in the river, I went past Watson Park, actually, where the Sauhegan dumps into the Merrimack River, and saw quite a bit of people activity all the way out to that point, walking through Watson Park, and and heading out along the Sauhegan River to where it dumps into the Merrimack. So a lot of activity going on there. I also saw quite a bit of activity on the town property, on Sklar property, as well as I was going down the river. People fishing, people barbecuing, picnicking. I saw cars close to the road, close to the, close to the shores, the bank of the river. So yes, we have quite a lot of usage going on around town, even places where we don't want people bringing their vehicles. So just a heads up. But beyond that, it was a beautiful kayak ride down the river. It's really something to see, to get in the river and go down, because you see structures that date back to the 1700s that were put in. There's a number of different structures in the river that provided access for our forefathers and for in families to navigate the river and have commerce on the river. So try it sometime.
Is there a rapid in there, Tim?
No, not really. I mean, just south of Depot Street, there's an area where you need to be careful of, and then just beyond Anheuser-Busch, heading south, there's an area, but you can see it in the river, and you can easily negotiate your way around it. So. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Gage, do you have anything?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right. That covers everything on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All those in favor? I guess by roll call. Steve?
Yes.
I say yes. Gina?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody on Merrimack TV. Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning. I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments, so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.